Good evening, everyone. Another wonderful Tuesday. I'm not too sure the weather like where you are, but it's kind of changeable here in the in sunny Sheffield. Let me just see what's going here. Oh, didn't work. Yeah, there we go. I'm trying to find out what's happening on our Facebook situation at the moment. Anyway, let's see what happens if anybody picks it up, and we'll take it from there. Anyway, so another Tuesday night. Oh, hang on. It says you're now live, so yeah, let's see what happens. So we are continuing our moral injury. This has just been an amazing situation to be in, and just in terms of the topic and the interaction with people. So I'd like to say welcome to anyone this evening who are watching, and welcome if you're here for the first time. I'm just waiting for my sound engineer to do what she normally does on a Tuesday. But I've not seen any sign of it yet, but I will do shortly. Anyway, hang on. Yeah, that's right. Let's leave that there for the moment. Yeah, so we're looking at are they silencing you? Really important topic in moral injury, how people can be silenced, and the use of NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, used to silence people. And I just want to say a quick welcome to you if you're here for the first time, those who may be watching silently, as I'm hearing more and more folks watching and they're contacting me secretly, so they've been watching for a while. But I just want to say a huge thank you. But as I kick off this evening, where we're looking at non-disclosure agreements, we're looking really at the history, how it kind of all started. And then next week, we're going to be looking at kind of 1940s up to modern day, how it's used and how it should not be used. So, if you recall, I began the article that I was really angry because how people have been treated. And I wanted to say to individuals that if you're feeling angry about something, it usually means that you need to do something about what you're feeling angry about. And it might be nobody else feeling angry about it, but maybe that's your body or your psyche or something inside of you saying, I need to do something about this. But first, as I continue with this, I would like to have a big shout out tonight for Mary Catherine Doctorill from United States, I believe. I wrote an article, very short quote this morning, did a reflection on a very short quote, and there was a wonderful response from Mary. I have got her permission, so I said I'd give her a shout out this evening. So Mary, if you're watching, I don't know, on LinkedIn or YouTube, if you want to just put a message, please do. I'll pick it up. But I'm going to read what Mary wrote. What I wrote this morning was this, just in case nobody's seen the quote. Can I find it? Yeah, here we go. Right. Hi, everyone. I've been thinking about recovery from moral injury and other forms of mistreatment and injustice people experience. It takes time to recover, and the process, birthing into something new, seems unimaginable when we are racked in pain. And then I talk about Sean Grover's comment about one of the ways of healing is giving back. So Mary wrote this response, a really, really lovely response. This is what she says. Yes, Delroy, the joy is sucked out and the road to recovery is a bumpy, twisted, lonely and isolating one. My heart aches for individuals that haven't found their supporters. It's hard enough having the joy ripped from your heart. I've only recently found my true, unadulterated supporters. It's taken half a century. I'm in my early 50s, but the words better late than never have never rung so true with me. Thanks for always for your posts. They're encouraging, inspiring, and give glimpses of hope and joy that are possible. So thank you very much, Mary, for your comments this evening on the program. So some of you will recall that Jonathan Shea spoke about PTSD, and he was he that coined the phrase moral injury, as he noticed the soldiers returning back from the Vietnam War were kind of traumatized, yes, but certain things they were really unhappy about, which caused them a lot of distress. The war was bad enough, but things like not enough food, not enough water, poor ammunition, not being treated well in terms of injury and so forth. That, he said, what's led to most of them taking their own lives. And interestingly enough, during the week, somebody commented, a retired nurse, and he said that one of the things that happened for him, he noticed that those who left the nursing profession one thing was working with the patient, but the other thing was just shortage of supplies and things kind of getting in the way and not being able to do the job properly. That's what really got to people. So, and as I always say, a huge thank you for, oh, I'm blurry, eh? Well, it's looking good to me here at the minute, Saffron. So just keep me posted if I'm looking clear or what or not. All right, thank you much indeed. So, a huge thank you for everyone. You've commented, you've messaged me privately to talk about your own experience. That's really, really encouraging. How some of you have not been hospitalized, as I wrote in my thing, God only knows. But I want to, as I go into this NDA and all the rest of it, I think I want to share a personal story, how I kind of got into this. Working with people with pain. I cannot tell you exactly how things happened, but when I was 15, you know, Caribbean lad in Leicester, on Friday afternoons we had electives. So I mentioned this recently. We had sports, football, girls had rounders and they did craft work and all the rest of it. But there was an elective and it was first aid. And a Caribbean lad in the 70s doing first aid was really unheard of, certainly in Leicester. And I decided to do first aid. I thought I'd get some stick from my friends, never did. So that went on from there. And then I then became a part of the Red Cross movement, did first aid, but then athletics kind of got in the way and I chose athletics and I continued doing that. And later on, when I was 28, 29, I started training as a psychotherapist. However, my mother said something one day to me. She said, she was very supportive of me becoming a physiotherapist, but she said, you know, Delroy, it's really good healing people's bodies, but it's perhaps even better healing their soul. Now, she's a strong Christian, ardent Christian, and I knew what she meant. And I still believe in the soul, but also people's inner being. If people don't believe in the soul, because lots of people don't, but I'm really interested in healing people's inner being. So what I'm sharing this evening really is to help people kind of really move on with what's happening in their lives. So the history of NDAs started way back in the agricultural era or agrarian society, whereby simple, you got a plot of land, I got a plot of land, we do something together, we shake hands on it, and my word is my bond. Also, I'd be interested to say that during that time, you had masons who worked on cathedrals and churches, and you can imagine all those years ago, hundreds of years ago, those the work was slow, handcrafted. So what they did, they kind of formed societies and they kept secrets amongst themselves, and they didn't share any of their trade secrets with people either working on another building. So they kept the skills within themselves. So in a sense, it was a gentleman's agreement. They would keep things among themselves. As time went on, they would allow honorary masons in, but that kind of ethos was there already. This is the guild, this is the fraternity, this is the clan, this is the tribe, and we keep all our skills and so forth to ourselves. Even before the Freemasons, there were people who tradespeople who would talk about their trades and also discuss secret recipes. Now, a modern day equivalent might be Colonel Sanders and Kentucky Fried Chicken. Allegedly, nobody knows what the secret recipe is. So obviously, when he was alive, he would know, his family would know, but he wouldn't share that with anybody. In a sense, you keep that secret to yourself. And sometimes you see some modern food programs, and when the reporter or so forth speaks to the individuals, asking them about the ingredients, they'll say, no, it's a family secret, a family recipe. They're keeping that within the family and they don't share it with anybody else. So various guilds and craftsmen and similar industries would keep conversations and the knowledge amongst themselves. This informal secrecy changed with two significant moments in history. First, there was a decline in building cathedrals and castles. And secondly, there was the great industrial revolution, which started off in Britain around about 1760, historians might say. It then traveled to Europe and then to America. So the great industrial revolution started around about 1760 and it lasted for about 80 years, about 1820, 1840. Interestingly, although this happened in 1760, I've always said to individuals, when something major is happening in one part of the world, you may find in another part of the world, there's different things happening. So for example, some of you may not know, but in South Africa, where, in South America, where Roman Catholic bishops were developing this idea of liberation theology, you had James Cone in America around about the same time developing black theology. They weren't in conversation with each other, but almost as though at the same time in different parts of the world, the kind of same energy and spirit was inspiring people to do certain things. So the reason for the Industrial Revolution was that Britain, from the colonies, had masses of raw material, and they had to kind of use it really quickly. So there was a movement from handcraft to things being done by machinery. So they got these raw materials from the colonies, from under the British Crown. They also had a really well-developed banking system. Of course they would have done, because they've got sugar, tobacco, and cotton from the colonies, literally, well, at the time, thousands and millions of pounds. So they had a really well-developed banking system. Also, there was political stability. And with the amount of money, they encouraged scientific innovation and doing new things. So if you had a bit of money, you were given carte blanche, in a way, the time to kind of develop things and to do things without too much fuss. So they said 1760, you've got the Industrial Revolution. So then, as we start to see machinery taking place and things are produced quicker, one of the things that is being produced there is lots of money. And one of the things that my best friend has said to me years ago, said, Delroy, money has strange powers. So now, under a capitalist system, money's been made, a profit has been made, and people want to keep the profit to themselves and so forth. So whatever is in a particular business, they want to keep it amongst themselves so that everything is kept within the trade. Let me just check something, just make sure that everyone is okay. Yeah, it looks like they are. Whoa, let's have a look. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so you've got this Industrial Revolution, increase of profits, and to safeguard people's business and their assets, there was a transition from gentleman's agreement, let's keep it in the family sort of thing, to formal written documents, which held each other to account and also not to betray confidences and so forth. So basically, one started to have great interest in protecting their property, and also one said intellectual property as well. So this whole thing around money really changes people's behavior. Some of you listening either live or on catch up later on in the week, some of you will know how families have been destroyed because of money. You know, somebody dies, leaves a lot of money, the family fight over it, and money changes relationships. My friend, he's passed away now, my school friend, he's passed away now, and I met up with him many years after we'd left school. His father was a very successful businessman, died very suddenly, and he said to me, Delroy, he said, I never knew my sister was so greedy, and massive fallout. He walked away from it all. I think he could have had some money. He just walked away from it all, and unfortunately my friend took his own life quite a few years later. I don't know if it's to do with that. I heard he was very unwell, and then he took his own life, but he said he didn't know that his sister was so greedy, and he didn't realize that his sister was like that. So money changes things. So from a gentleman's agreement, keeping things in the guild, the crafts guild, from a formal legal agreement or documents to NDAs. So with increase of industry and the power of engaging markets, there was increased amounts of money to be made. It became necessary to protect one's business as best they could. And in Sharp's workplace, a community legal and assistance society, NDAs appear to have been used as early as 1840. I'm going to develop more of that next week. But it wasn't until the 1980s that they became commonplace. because remember in the 1980s was the rise of the tech industry. So we had the Industrial Revolution that finishes about 1840 to 20, and then there's a bit of a lull in terms of progress. And then in the 1980s, there's a burgeoning of semiconductors and tech organizations where serious amounts of money are to be made. So what people want to do, they want to keep their secrets amongst themselves. It's almost like, you know, kind of a race to the top. And in fact, one of the ways you can know the kind of development of technology is mobile phones. My daughters used to laugh when we used to see films in the 70s where you saw mobile phones and they carried it in their hand with this kind of long aerial, and now we can have mobile phones on our watches and so forth. So sometimes, so you can see in the last 30, 40 years, our mobile phones have really changed in terms of how they look and what we can do with them now. It's incredible, really, what we can do with them. It's just absolutely incredible. I think once upon a time, mobile phones, all you could do was make calls. Then after that, I think it was texting. And now your phone is almost like it's a mini library. So this is what Sharp Workplaces say. Sharp Workplaces is an American-based website. A non-disclosure agreement, or NDA, is a signed legal document that restricts sharing certain information with others. It usually means the person signing cannot share information about a specific event or series of events, misconduct such as sexual harassment or discrimination, the conduct of an employer, and or terms of the NDA itself. So that's what the NDA is. It's a kind of, it's meant to keep people silent in terms of silence, in terms of sensitive material, but it's not meant to be used as a gagging order. And I'll be talking more about that next week. So the original intention was to really keep people's business, really to protect people's business, and to ensure that if I work for a company and I was going to go to another tech company, I wouldn't be telling them the secrets. In fact, there's somebody I know, he's involved in high finance, and when he left the organization, he couldn't work for another organization for something like 18 months, 2 years. He could not go to a competitor group because of this whole thing around secrecy and so forth. So he had to sign something before he left. Thus, NDAs were originally used to protect trade secrets, but with the development of a capitalist system, it became necessary for something more stringent than a gentleman's agreement. So it's a short one today, shorter than usual. So my conclusion is, more will be said next week, but it's important to have some knowledge of these situations. You know, sometimes we get caught up in these things. We wonder, how on earth did this come about? And it's important to have some knowledge that we might, because sometimes we find ourselves in a situation, we don't know how things have come about. So it's really important to know how NDAs came about. So it started off shaking of the hand. My word is my bond, which came from kind of Shakespearean literature from around about the 1600s. And it was at one time when you said something, that was it. You were held to it. There was no written agreement. But even today, quite often there's things that are exchanged between people. There's an agreement. There's no written contract. The only time there's problems is when somebody then kind of reneges or defaults on what they promise. So then we have to get the legal people involved, and then there's a decision made through conversation, through what was written and so forth, whether what was said was true or what was said as somebody broken it. I've not watched it for years, but I think Judge Judy, some of us may know some of that. Judge Judy was something that was something along those lines. So my final comment really is this, and I'll say this to all of us who are listening live or on catch up for today. Regardless of how secure you are in your organization, you do not really know how secure you are until you start talking about something you shouldn't be talking about. You can be flavor of the month, as my friend was. Flavor of the month, 15 years in an organization, high flyer, won awards, won holidays, won presents. She was, in terms of the team that she led, got the results, got the targets and so forth, and within 4 or 5 months out of the organization completely. I'll say a bit more about that next week. But on the end of a phone call, you don't need to come in. You don't talk to anybody. That's it. So no matter how secure you are in an organization or how secure you think you are, you really don't know how secure you are until you start talking about things that they say shouldn't be spoken about. So organizations will have, and you'll know this, many organizations will have whistleblowing policies. But people who do blow the whistle, they don't have a good time in the workplaces. And quite often there's a lot of energy expended to get rid of them. Whereas leaders would note what's been said, pull the people to one side, let's look at our strategies, let's do something different. They had to do that in the aviation industry. An excellent book for you to look at is Matthew Syed's Black Box Thinking. And he said this, I think I mentioned it a few weeks ago, but it's a classic case of leadership taking the comments of their crew seriously. He said one of the main reasons why the aviation industry is so safe, every single incident is reported, but they had to do two things. Change the culture so that anybody that reported anything would not be faced with being disciplined, losing their jobs, being suspended, any form of dismissal. They had to change the culture so crew, anybody could report something. Once it's reported, whether major or minor, it would then be investigated, reflected on, and then new learnings would come forward, and then training would develop to equip the crew. He said that's why the aviation industry is so safe. Things still go wrong, but when it goes wrong, there's not this thing about sweeping it under the carpet and let's move on to the next thing. It's looking at what is taking place. And I would say, as I said before, finally, I'll say this really, never, ever, ever leave your future in the hands of anyone else. Your future depends on you. I don't mind how long you've been in an organization. Things, I'm talking about my friend who's been in the place for 15 years. It can be even longer, and people start to see certain practices. They make a comment and they're told not to, but it's clearly wrong. And so they make further comments. They're told if you continue this, things are going to be very difficult for you. And this is whole thing about there's a clash of values, a clash of our morals. We may be able to keep silent for a bit, but sometimes we have to choose our moments, say the bit, and the next thing you know, you've been there for 15, 20 years. Somebody was faithful, dependable. You're calling things out. The next thing you know, you're out on your ear. But before that, you sign an NDA, they give you some money, and then you're out. Next week, I'll be looking at this whole thing from ACAS, what NDAs shouldn't be used for, what they are used for, what they shouldn't be used for, and what position do we have if we are faced with having to sign an NDA. I'll be looking at all that next week. So listen, thank you very much indeed. We looked at are you being silenced? And one of the things I've said all along, in terms of our well-being, I've looked at a document, the historical development of NDAs, but on the other side of that, on the human side, when we've experienced some form of mistreatment, injustice, inequality, unfairness, and we've been dismissed from a workplace, and it's been moral injury, and we've been told to keep silence, part of keeping silence really compounds our well-being. Because one of the things that we've said already in terms of well-being, we need to be able to talk. So for those who may be listening, if you're interested in joining on, thank you, James. Thank you. I weren't too sure who was on this evening, but thank you very much indeed. I've got 3 contestants for an online community. I'm going to keep a waiting list. And when I get to about between 6 and 10, let's put something out. And then if we can meet online, it'll be a confidential group. People who've gone through, I know 3 people already who've had similar experiences. So if you're kind of tentative, look, you've got here's my website, my email address. Please email me privately, confidentially, or on a message on LinkedIn. and just say what it's about. I do speak to people. I've had conversations with people in different parts of the world on Zoom. Just kind of get it set up. More than happy to have conversations with you if you're not too sure. I don't want you to suffer alone, but it's really good if you're with somebody or with people who get you, because they've gone through something similar. So I wish you well. Enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your week. I'll see you next week for part 2 of Are You Being Silenced? So we'll do a little bit more on the NDAs, and then we'll look at what we can do in the sense that, because the problem with the NDAs, I'll finish with this. The problem with the NDAs is this: they get you to sign, they pay you off, and the organization usually carries on as normal. There's no change. And really what you don't want to experience, you don't want somebody else to experience what you've experienced. So we'll look at next week, we'll look at ways in which you can ensure that you're not made to sign the NDA, but you can take a level of autonomy to do what you need to do for yourself. So wish you well, enjoy the rest of the Tuesday, and I'll see you next week at 7 o'clock. Take care, but please feel to contact me during the week on any matters relating to moral injury. Wish you well, speak to you soon. All the best, bye-bye. Thank you, James. Thank you. And anyone else who's watching tonight, thank you.